Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be playing in the Tier 10 French Collector Heavy, the AMX M4 MLE54. This Tier 10 is quite the dangerous one. It has a lot of capabilities going for it. First of all, it's pretty fast. It achieves a top speed of 45, and it reverses at 20 with a pretty good power-to-weight ratio. And even though this tank is absolutely massive, I mean, look at the size of this vehicle compared to something like a Rhino. It's not only quite a bit wider, but it's probably 3 times the height. In fact, this tank is about the same height as a mouse. Now that's good and bad. The good is that you're tall enough to overlook buildings and other structures that you might be able to shoot players through. The problem is that being large also makes you an incredibly easy target for people to pick at, especially when it comes to the turret. This thing is huge, and only the front of the tank is very well armored. If we take a look, we can see that the sides of the tank are only 100 millimeters thick, so what that means is that, yeah, you can cut through the sides very easily if you're not angling it properly. However, I would be willing to argue that the AMX M4 has some of the strongest armor in Tier 10 when used properly. This is what the AMX looks like on flat ground. Its upper plate is over 330 thick, the turret is completely red, the only real weak points you're going to be able to hit are the hatches, but because this thing's so tall, if it's using gun depression, you physically cannot see those hatches. We can see even loading gold that there's really no weak points. You're going to need, at minimum, about 370 mils of heat to cut through the upper plate of this tank on flat ground. That's not even mentioning if it's using its 8 degrees, you're going to need over 425, which is pretty insane. And the turret, the weakest part of the turret, is over 500 millimeters thick on the base armor. That's not even adding the fact that it's spaced. So, in other words, you physically cannot pen the tank anywhere on the turret unless you hit this small little thin bar on the bottom here, because that's part of how the gun depression works. But generally, this tank has insane levels of frontal protection. You have to be careful though, just like the Type 5 Heavy, it has these corner cutouts on the left and the right, and they are very weak. So generally, you're actually going to have more armor if you stay just frontally focused than you are if you angle it, because of how weak those cutouts are. I mean, sure, the lower plate is a weak point, but I'd rather take my chances with the lower plate than the most easy corner cutout. We can also see when you turn the turret to the side, it's a pretty easy weak point, so you got to be really careful about that. And yeah, side scraping, it's not great. I mean, this is a very, very slight over angle, and you're able to cut right through the tracks. So, as I mentioned, there are a lot of strengths and a lot of downsides to this tank. Now, it does feature sandbags, which is quite nice if you wanted to get extra HP. You can get another 150. Personally, I actually think it's better to run double food and fuel. Simple reason why is because the gun on this tank sucks. It's 0.362 dispersion or something like that, which is about the same as an IS-7. The problem is that your on-movement dispersion is also horrible, and the aiming time isn't a whole lot better. So you have a long aiming time, you have bad dispersion, and yeah, it's not a great combination. So the problem with this tank is that the gun is genuinely horrible. The DPM is solid, its penetration and even damage per shot at 450, those are all really good, but it doesn't matter if half the shells you fire aren't going to go where you aim. So because of that, driving this vehicle is actually rather skill-based, and while it can have some incredibly strong moments, it also has moments where it falls apart very fast due to the large size. But you can see the mobility. I mean, the fact that this thing weighs 60 plus tons and is able to easily go upwards of 40 to 45 kilometers per hour, it's pretty dang impressive. We're going to chill here in the beginning and see if we spot anything. We have the enemy 60 TP, which that was never going to hit, but hey, you miss every shot you don't take, right? Alright, well, we have captured the base, which is pretty nice. And let's see, is anything over here? Nope, there's the 60 over poking, and we get a nice 440 damage shell into that player. Now, you'll notice, even though this thing is large, the turret actually turns very quick, which is always an interesting fact about this vehicle. Alright, let's poke and see if that IS-4... Okay, never mind. We're going to be spotted and shot in the rear. How fun. Okay, well, let's aim it on the side of that T-22. Unfortunately, our shell completely missed. This is not a good situation to be in, if I'm going to be totally real. Obviously, the last thing I want is a T-22 on my side, so that's definitely going to be something to keep in mind. We do get a shell into the IS-4, though. Bleeds him out at least a little bit. I don't know if that 60's still there, but we are going to back up. I'm going to load a gold shell, and yeah, you can see that pretty poor accuracy, but I wanted to get over here hull down because this is a much, much safer position than where we were a moment ago. Let's aim it on that IS-4 lower plate. There you go. Nice 490. That puts us up to 1400 damage already, which is pretty good, actually. And let's see, is this IS-4 going to show me a side? He does. There's another 417. Okay, that's pretty good. IS-4 is getting bled out. And we're holding this spot hull down because we know that they have a T-22. I don't really want to deal with that. Is the T-22 going to poke? They just going to sit there? Right now, looks like they're not really doing much. Okay. I mean, we still have over 2,000 health, so we're doing pretty good in that department. We're going to aim it on the 57. Unfortunately, our shell does not end up going into that player. 57 Heavy has some of the dumbest armor in Tier 10, so it can be tricky to penetrate that vehicle due to all of the space protection it is able to feature. Okay, well, I'm just going to chill here for now. I don't really know what this T-22 is doing. I don't know if they're sitting up on that ridge or what their big brain plan is. We have the 60 TP over here, and wow, I'm shocked that that shell hit, but it did, so I'll take it. Our Foch is getting bled out pretty heavily, so that's also something to keep in mind. But I'm going to push up at this point. I think we can get away with it. As I said, I don't really know what the T-22 is doing, but I'm also not that worried. Take the enemy 183 out of the game. That puts us up to 2,500. And we still have the full health 57 Heavy in front of us, which is obviously quite nice. I'm going to go for the 60. There you go. Nice 487. That player is out of the game. And, yeah, I'm going to just see how much we can take off this guy by ramming him full speed. Not bad. 365, plus a nice max roll of 563. That took off a very large amount of that player's hit points, and then all that's left is the Badger right over here, which we get a 440 shot into. And there you go. That's 4,379 damage and a really good game. I don't know where this T-22 went. I think they went AFK back there somewhere, because we never saw them again. They just... I guess they stopped playing the game. But you can definitely see where the AMX M4 does a pretty good job. When you're able to get this gun to actually work, and you can use the mobility, and the pretty good DPM it features, it's definitely able to output a decent amount of damage, as we did in this game right here. The downside of the AMX, as I said, is just that it's so large, and people always spot you. It's so easy to detect this thing and farm it out, so you don't want to get caught out in the open. I would say the biggest cause of misplays in this vehicle, even for me, is because it's so fast, I'll end up driving my tank into an over-aggressed position. I either won't have team support or the enemy just won't care and they'll YOLO me. A lot of the games I've died in this tank, I've gotten just completely YOLO'd because autoloaders don't care. They don't care how much armor you have. They'll just drive out in the open, trade the 450 alpha, and in return take 1,200 off you, right? And that's really your biggest threat, is over-aggressing. So when driving this vehicle, my recommendation is to keep an eye on where your team is and keep an eye on how fast you're getting to that position you're looking at. Now this game, we are on Himmelsdorf, which is a pretty good map for this vehicle. We have a Kron, a Rhino, and an Object 752. Okay, well, they have better tanks than we do, I will say that. It's not even close. We have 3 single shots, and they have 3 autoloaders. Like, I'm so glad Wargaming solved the autoloader problem, right? Clearly. That's why their whole team is full of them and ours isn't. Alright, well, I'm gonna go wide. I didn't want to, but my Stridsvon and IS-7 cut me off, so I don't really have much of a choice. Yeah, look at the size of my aiming circle, by the way. It's insane how inaccurate this vehicle is. Like, it's actually crazy. Alright, well, we have the Kron, who I'm aiming it on the hatch of, and boom. Well, okay, that was a perfect shell into the hatch and did literally nothing. Alright, well, at this point, I'm actually going to make an over-aggression, simply because I think I can get away with it. We have the Rhino over here, and I don't know if this Rhino even has a whole lot of support, so, oh my god, ooh, I don't want to get mad, but as I told you guys, the gun on this tank is genuinely a joke, and, well, it's acting like it right now. We get our first pen into the enemy Rhino, it's not bad, and the Rhino shoots again. I know for a fact they're out of shells, and because this thing actually has decent levels of DPM, I can overpoke and get an easy shot in return. We have the T92E1. I have no clue what our IS-7 is doing. Absolutely no clue. But what I do know is that we can get to the side of this player and get another easy bleed. Okay, well, we have the 268, which I'm going to back up from, and let's see, can I get a shell into that player? Boom, there you go, 515. Pretty good chunk of damage there. 268 is not playing the smartest, and now we're going to reload, and let's see if we can get a shell into the enemy 752 lower plate, and boom, there you go, 406. But again, we can clearly see where this tank is quite good. The gun it's horrible, but if you can get the gun frontline, it's not the worst. Like, you do have DPM, you do have good damage per shot, and those are all values that you actually look for in a vehicle like this, so that's obviously quite good. The 92E1 appears to be lagging or something. We got a nice 600 damage juicer right into his vehicle once, and we're going to reload again. Let's see. Okay, well, the 92E1 killed himself. I'm actually going to ignore him, and I'm going to try and deal some extra damage into the Kron, so let's back up. There you go. Nice little chunk, and give the 92 a ram, because obviously at this point, it's a guaranteed win, so I'm just trying to go for damage. Kron shoots me, and let's load an HE. Again, this gun, it's really bad. I'm not going to say that was like the craziest shot, but still, the accuracy of this gun is, it's bad. And it will miss a lot of easy shells. I tried it with the V-stabs, it doesn't make it any better. Like, at the end of the day, this gun will always be a pile of flaming turds because of how inaccurate it is. It just really struggles to hit shots. But we did good. We got a kill, 4,000 damage, we aced it, and that placed us top in the team. So not too bad at all. But yeah, I will say that I do believe this tank is probably the worst gun in tier 10 in terms of the accuracy. I really do. Because a lot of other tanks, you have a high alpha for the bad accuracy, right? I mean, the IS-7, it has similar base dispersion, but its on move is way better. So because of that, the IS-7 is generally much more aimed in when moving. And not only that, but the IS-7 gets tungsten, so it's able to hit for over 500 damage per shot. This tank has 450, which isn't that crazy high of a damage value when you realize there's a lot of other heavies, like the WZ-111-5A with 440 alpha, that feature substantially better aiming time and overall accuracy. There are vehicles like the IS-4 with only 20 less damage per shot that also feature substantially better accuracy. I mean, even tier 9s like the E75 on their team features a 460 alpha gun with better accuracy. So that's really the big problem with this tank, is just the gun is horrendous. It really is. And when you miss a couple shots like we did in that last game, it can make a big difference if then those tanks decide to push you. But I know I've complained a little bit, but overall the AMX M4 is a fantastic tank. It's just a very, very skill-based tank in regards to how well you can actually get it to work. So we are going to push up towards base C, and we'll play it by ear. So we're going to move up a little bit more. Let's keep going, and we have the enemy KPZ. Alright, let's aim in, and boom. There you go, nice 425. The thing that's interesting is if you do have this vehicle fully aimed in, it's not like the worst, but the problem is getting it fully aimed in it's easier said than done. We get another shell into the Kampfpanzer. As I've mentioned, because this thing is so tall, it's actually very easy to overlook positions and get shells out. And that's one of the things that I do genuinely enjoy about this tank, is the height does give you shots that you probably wouldn't get in any other vehicle. And the mouse obviously doesn't feature the mobility this thing does, so having height is actually sometimes an advantage. We have the enemy Centurion, which we get a 486 shot into. I have to be careful because they do have 3 tank destroyers, and the last thing I want is to be farmed out by one of those TDs in the back. In fact, we're getting shot at already by something. Not even... Okay, we're getting hit for 756. Yay! Great! Everything's shooting me. My bad, bro. There you go. This is what I was talking about. Because this tank is so large, everybody shoots you. Literally everybody. It's a problem. It's a problem. Everything hits you. Nothing bounces. It's very frustrating when you're such a large, easy target to hit. And it definitely can make this tank a lot less enjoyable to drive. Now, that's not to say it's bad. It's just, you know, getting constantly hit like that, it can make it a lot less fun. So there you go. Take that player out of the game. And now we're going to back up so that we can't be hit by that player. We have the E75 in front of us, which we're going to aim in on the lower plate of. We get a nice 411. And I just need to hide my lower plate. We're doing fine so far. E75 is going to turn, which means we can move over here and get another shell into him myself for 420. We have the Stridsvon on the rear, and it looks like the 5A is probably going to take that player out of the game. Indeed they do. We're already up to 3,400, which is pretty good. And I'm hoping that we can obviously... Okay, well, they're cooked either way. At this point, the only tank left is the enemy E3. But I can't really get mad. We did good. It's just, I think this game was a perfect example of how quickly this thing can get caught out in the open, right? I don't think any other game we played was as good of an example as this one. We made one aggression, and their entire team was already after us. So, yeah, you got to be really careful. But let's see, we have the E3 on the side. Boom, there you go, nice 430. And once again, we had a good game, 3,896 damage. Kanonen is most likely going to take the E3 out of the game, and there you go. Pretty good battle. So, what can I say about the AMX M4? I think it's a really strong tank. I've played this vehicle a lot over the past 30 days, and sometimes you have really, really unenjoyable games, but most of the time it's games like this, where you might bleed a lot because you made an over-aggression, but generally, the gun, the mobility, and the capabilities of this tank's frontal protection allow it to get away with these really aggressive plays. I don't think there's a single tier 10 in the game that features as much mobility and frontal protection as this tank does. And that means that you can get really aggressive. There are games on like Dead Rail and Port Bay where I can beat, even on the bad spawn, the enemy team to position, and then because of that, they're not able to push in. And even if they do, good luck penning this tank with gun depression. And that's really where the AMX does amazing. It's when you're able to get this thing on a ridge and you're able to fight hull down. Because I don't think there's a tank with stronger armor hull down in tier 10. I have been high explosive. Like, people will literally fire high explosive on the turret of this thing, and it'll deal 0 damage because, as I mentioned, it's all spaced armor. Like, if you look here, let's pull up a tank with a high damage, high explosive round. Let's say, like, a Yag. If you fire HE at the AMX turret with a Yag, you're dealing maybe 67 damage. Like, look at that. 67 damage. That's it. If you're hitting this tank, the most damage you're dealing on the entire turret is like 70. Now, if you shoot the edges, you might deal more, right? You might actually have somewhat of a splash, but in general, this thing is just ridiculously well armored, and yeah, you're actually dealing more damage if you splash the upper plate than you are the turret. So if you're in like a 400 alpha gun, like an E5 or something, you're dealing 0 damage. Like, you physically cannot damage this thing with HE. It's insane. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.